We've seen all of this. We've worked with Hollywood, Bollywood, but in a day or two, everything just disappeared. So for me, I lost everything.
You could build the entire app and all of its features, and that would take you maybe months of development, and it would cost a lot of money. But that's too risky, because you might build a product, invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars into it, and then you realize people don't want it.
It all depends on how can I get the attention of Ahmed instead of him watching TikTok or sleeping or playing a game on PlayStation or watching my Netflix movie. It's a lot now that we're competing with.
A fearful position where you're not sure whether you should take a step or not is ask the question, what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen, it could have been, I would have lost a lot of money. Or can you shed light on the difficulty of the people aspect?
Best possible team for this specific project.
That must be still very difficult to do. Like,
I thought I'm gonna leave this industry forever.
I was gonna start by saying, I'm sure we'll get this question. Both of you are Arab. Why are you talking in English?
صح, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, I had this في my previous podcast.
I'm sure.
أتكلم وايد بالإنجليزي.
Yeah.
So will we keep it in English ولا?
Fully English. Hey,
Right.
I'll tell you why. I'll start. This will help me answer the question for everyone, but let's start with that. One, I think over the past few years, I had to be speaking a lot more English in my day-to-day because I get to work with international people.
Yeah.
And two, we spoke about the concept of business as a sport a few days ago, and we had a lot of fun with that conversation. Maybe we talk about it later today. But
Right.
at some point, I told you, I want to play with the big boys league. I want to play in the top league. And the top league of business, of arts, of film production, of AI or chip manufacturing, many of these industries, the top league in those industries speak in English. So if you want to be the best globally, you have to speak English.
Right.
And that's something I aspire for. What do you think?
Then I agree with you. Like I've been in this field now for the last 10 years probably or more, few years more. However, working with international talent, you have to speak their language. So even the terms we use, we still use the English terms of content and production all the time. And that's because as well, it helps us to get through the conversation and just align on the same language. Even the terms in filmmaking, if you use a French term, it just confuses sometimes the crew. You need to get things as quick as
Interesting.
yeah. So
Are there French terms in filmmaking?
yes, there are French, there are English, but we mainly use the English terms most of the time. We work with different schools, so for me to align everyone, I need to align on the terms as well. I work with Tunisian crew who studied in French cinema. I work with Syrians who actually studied Arabic cinema, and then I work with internationals that actually each of them come from different school. It's different from the structure, it's different from the process, it's also different from the way they think about the project. So if I don't align them in the beginning of every project, things get messed up really bad.
That must be still very difficult to do, like these different cultures, different languages. I mean, I think in business it's quite difficult, but I think when it comes to like filmmaking, culture has a lot to do with even like the different disciplines. So acting, like there might be different best practices in different areas.
Definitely.
So I'm sure that causes a lot of conflict.
All the time, believe me. Like in all my projects, I've worked with crew from all around the world. And starting with the first one I've done as a series was Kingdoms of Fire. And it was people from Europe, America, Colombia, Spain, British people. And then I have a lot of Arabs from Egypt, Syria, Tunisians. And man, like to create the orchestra and the harmony between them, it was the most difficult thing that we've ever been through. And you realize then that the cultures are different, the working culture is different. And I also realized that a lot of the talent we have in the region could be better in some places because of not because of the working culture only, but because of the cultural background they come from. Let's say, I don't know how you will define feza,
Mm.
in English. However, it's something that is within the culture. So people will actually stand with the producer to make the best out of the project. However, when it's an international talent and they're very keen on time and they calculate the time per minute for them to get paid, it's a
Mm.
totally different culture and totally different outcome as well. So it's interesting to realize that because it's different schools, as you said.
Fascinating. And I think, I mean, one would hope that maybe you get to work with only a certain, let's say, people who come from a certain school, because then things become easier. But in our day and age, it's almost impossible with globalization, with the fact that the region, relatively speaking, is not the most mature when it comes to the ecosystem, and multiple ecosystems.
Yeah.
Did you ever try or attempt to
To work with
maybe,
one school,
yeah,
actually, it is much easier, and this is how it works in the Arab world. You would see that a Syrian production would definitely work with Syrians most of the time, and then the heads of departments might be from somewhere else. However, they will adapt to the Syrian system. It's easier, much easier to work with. However, I think to get different outcome, diversity is key, and you would see that you can play with the final product in the end by having different perspectives and different kind of approaches to things. What I did in the movie, we are just speaking about the one that is still most watched on Netflix original. I brought my camera team fully from India, and because I wanted to create a specific look that actually Indians are really good at, and then the DP I actually chose to lead this was a DP who studied in Hollywood. However, he's working in Bollywood right now. So I get the best of the both worlds, you know. And this actually created how the uniqueness of the project. So playing with that, I think, is a game by itself. And in filmmaking, it's you're bringing different arts together to create one product in the end. So a lot of creatives putting their heart and mind into it to come up with one product that must be cohesive. If it's not cohesive, it will not work. So for me, it's a game that I play with every project. It's selecting your best possible team for this specific project, you know?
fascinating. I have so many follow up questions, but I want to discipline myself into zooming out a little bit because we jumped right in.
Right.
Didn't even introduce you.
Yeah.
Not that I mean, the past couple of episodes, I was not introducing anyone. I was just like jumping right in, just to not to overthink the format.
Right.
But I think it would be very helpful for people to know maybe, let's say, three things. Who are you? What is your obsession, or what is the area that you're like specializing in, the area that you love? And the third, we were just talking earlier about how you had a talk yesterday, and you said the talk was for the younger generation, and they have an issue with maybe attention span. I think all of us have an issue with attention span.
Yes.
Now, to be fair, so the first thing you did was you showed them a show reel of like your work. In this context, maybe you can't show that show reel, but if you take off the humility hat off for a second, and just talk about like a couple of the achievements that your work has had in the past few years.
Sure. I'm Jasim. I'm a producer. I produce films and TV series. I'm a founder of the Creator Space, and it's a company that has been there now only for the last 2 years. I've had a company before that for 8 years, and I produce premium local content from the region. I'm only focusing on premium because I believe our region deserves great storytelling in a high production value, because the world actually now is used to comparing content from all around the world, and it doesn't matter the time that you will spend either with an Arabic content or an international content. You need to get the best of your time. I called it the creator space because my company focuses on bringing talent together. This is what I'm obsessed with. I'm obsessed with getting creatives together to create a unique product in the end. I'm obsessed with getting the best out of those talents, and I'm sure that we have a lot of creatives in the whole region here that we can get the best out of.
Love it. Take off the humility hats off. And
So my previous projects, I have Head to Head. It's a Saudi original Netflix film. It's the most watched film on Netflix Arabic right now.
Amazing.
I've done Al Boom and Khattaf. It's the first flagships in this level in UAE. They are the most watched two series last Ramadan. I've also done Hikayat Wa'ad, which is it's something I'm proud of because it's talking about the Vision 2030 in Saudi, and we're getting the leaders of this vision to speak about the case studies of each project. So for me, it was one of the most watched as well in on NBC 2 years ago. However, for me, it's a learning to me, and it's a learning to everyone who will watch it because it gets you through the challenges we spoke about last time. That leaders would face all the time to get their vision executed.
Amazing. Love it. Okay. I feel like maybe we started off a bit with too much structure, but we said this is going to be a conversation. But
It
I
is,
think
yeah.
this is valuable for whoever's listening just to understand who's in the room and get a bit of context. But like, خلاص, let's drop the formality and just kick it off with a conversation. I want to go back to a couple of things you said, which I think we both kind of geeked out on last time we spoke, which are around like the sport of business and how I didn't think that my world would have so much in common with your world, but apparently like there's so much in common, and specifically the point about people and how this is like it's a team sport. So without the right people, you just can't produce at the end of the day. Whether it's I also like how you called it a product.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I build products. I
Yeah.
wouldn't think about the stuff you create as products. I think of them as like, I don't know, pieces of content or films or whatever you want to call them. But I love that also it's a similar terminology, and they are products.
Yeah.
Can you maybe shed light on can you shed light on the difficulty of the people aspect being maybe if I can say, young producer in the region?
So I think so every project we work on is a startup by itself, and I think it's something we spoke about as well. That I have a script, which is the idea I would call, and then in the beginning of the script, I need to recruit the right people, the right team, the right structure for me to execute this project in the best way possible. I have a timeline and I have a budget to align on, and then once we're done with this project, I need to make sure that the closing is right, the audit is right, and everything financially is right. So being put into that, because every idea is different, it requires different skill sets, different people, and you face different problems. And this is where I see the common ground in business, right? And by working with people that actually to achieve this product or this film, they have a high, let's say, a high level of creativity, but at the same time, maybe a very low skill in management, in leadership, in maybe communication that would affect the work. So it's always a choice between both, and it depends on each project. How will I choose my heads of department, and what are the skills that I need for this role specifically? Is it only the technical part? Because the technical part, yes, is really important, and this is what gets you the product in the end. But also the communication and the leadership of how you lead your people to get it done is also a struggle. So I think the struggle with the people that you cannot keep the same people on every project. You have to change the people. I'm not with recruiting creatives. I'm always for having free creatives that are freelancers that we get for the job, because this will make them as well get the project done in the best way possible, because this will be the last project they have on their CV. So
Just for for us to kind of
yeah,
time out, because a lot of new concepts. So for someone who doesn't understand the industry, you start usually with a script.
yes,
Okay, and then you go on to maybe secure funding, and then you recruit the team. Is that how it works?
right, you're right.
Okay. And you were saying that when you're recruiting the team, you have so many choices to make, or so many things to optimize for potentially. Do you optimize for technical talent? Do you optimize for, okay, you have the best technical talent in the world, but they can't talk to each other and they can't orchestrate or have any leadership skills?
Yeah.
What are some other variables that you look at when it comes to the people that you recruit?
So in terms of skill sets, it's of course it's time management, it's communication, it's actually speaking the same language,
Like
Like
literally English or the same
English,
language in terms of
English or Arabic, of course.
got it.
Like if
I thought you mean in terms of like how they communicate and
I'm coming to that as
okay.
well. The schools is really important.
Okay.
For specific roles, for example, I would choose the French school over the American school. So for every department, I have a specific kind of way we created. So for us to reach to a cohesive working environment and a working culture that everyone can understand, we created our own playbook and we customized that to the region. We've been working with a lot of consultants before to actually use the best practices in Hollywood or Bollywood or even the Europeans. However, we found out that our infrastructure is different, our people are different, the talent we have, they work totally different. So we need to actually customize an international best practice to bring it to the region and then to find our way of doing things. Now, so for every role, you will have a specific skill set that, for example, for an assistant director, because he's the person who's between production and the direction team. So there is a lot of skill sets that he needs to have. He's getting pressured from the director and he's getting pressured from the production to get things done at the right time. So it's communication, it is time management, it is leadership on set. It's actually those. So once we started defining those skills that we need, I would say our choices got much better. Our let's say our the people that we're choosing, we're getting them better
Amazing.
than before. You know.
Amazing, amazing. So that's I'm sure like one piece of the pie, and there's so much
Yeah.
more. Are you familiar with the term layman's term? So
No.
it's a saying when someone so let's say there's a difficult concept in business, and someone tells me I don't understand it. Can you explain it to me in layman's terms? Layman's terms means the simple man's terminology of like how can you say it in a very simple way for someone who doesn't understand this field. And I feel like this is going to be a continuous challenge for me, like talking to people who are like so obsessed with their field, myself included. Like if I talk to someone, like you said, assistant director who needs to talk between the director and the production. And let me tell you, 99% of the world has no idea
True.
how that works. So actually, this is super fun for me because I get to be that kind of like assistant for you when it comes to storytelling.
Yeah.
And one way I like to think of this, and I think it's a great way for you to explain for people who are curious about your field of obsession. How does it work? Like, what are the elements of it? I like to think of the analogy of the anatomy. And so, what I mean by this is when someone asks, "What's the anatomy of the human body?" Well, you have these organs, you have these muscles, you have these whatever. And when someone asks, "What's the anatomy of business?" Well, you have marketing, you have engineering, you have whatever, you have different functions. What's the anatomy of
Interesting.
film production?
So the anatomy of film production is content, talent, marketing, and distribution.
Beautiful.
This is like the whole entertainment sector depends on that. It's sports, it's filmmaking, it's books, it's everything. Now, to get the content, this is where it comes, where you put the script together and then you get the right people to get the script in the best visual possible for the budget that you have. Then recruiting the right talent that actually are a fit for this specific project and they would know how to get it done. Then you will have the marketing part where it is to reach people to know about your product and to get their attention.
That's for the viewers or for the distribution channels?
For the viewers, and then distribution comes in the end where you get it. Let's say its availability to get it in different part of the
Nice.
world.
It's like if you launch a physical product, the distribution is the supermarkets, and the marketing is for the end buyer or end consumer.
100%.
Nice.
Now, like we work on attention. Like our business is based on attention, and to get the attention of the audience, there is a lot to do. Like we are in a business where you spend more to get like if I would tell you that the ticket you will pay for cinema will not change. I'm getting the same amount it's 30, let's say it's $10, okay, for a cinema ticket. If I would pay, if I would invest $1 million in a movie or $100 million in a movie, I would get the same amount of money for a ticket. What would make me spend 100 million, right?
The volume of tickets, I assume.
No. Yeah, to get the volume of tickets, but to get the volume of tickets, so it means I need to get more attention. So it's called the blockbuster strategy, where we spend more, and it's called high bets, big hits, high bets. So basically, we bet a lot of money, and it's always betting because you don't know what will happen later on. However, the more you bet, the more probability that you might get.
It kind of sounds like gambling.
It is gambling. And entertainment is all about gambling.
Interesting.
It is because sports is gambling, entertainment is gambling. You're betting on the feeling of the audience that they will engage with you on this specific product. You guys would engage on watching, let's say, Real Madrid facing Barcelona. There is a lot that happens before that for the audience to actually would watch this game, right? There is the players that you guys might like. There is the winnings that they've done before. There is a lot that happens, which is the content for us, and around the content, which is the news that you would watch about it. So it all depends on how can I get the attention of Ahmed instead of him watching TikTok or sleeping or playing a game on PlayStation or watching my Netflix movie. It's a lot now that we're competing with. It's not like before. So that's why it's all based on attention. And also it's moving from attention to intimacy with AI. And this is the scary part of what will happen in the future of content.
By intimacy, you mean how the content should be personalized to...
Very personalized.
Fascinating.
Now, it is already personalized in a way. Your thumbnails on Netflix is different than my thumbnails on Netflix. It depends on what you watched, and it depends on the content you consume. The recommendations are different. However, it's still not as personalized to be called intimacy.
Yeah.
Intimacy would be the content you watch is different than the content I watch, which is happening now in the comments of TikTok, right? Where your comments that you watch is different than the comments I watch.
Comments?
Yes.
The comments, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
There was a big case that happened recently where actually a girlfriend sent to her boyfriend that, oh, look at the comments. And the video was about a girlfriend who was actually complaining her boyfriend is not coming back home as he promised her. So the comments he watched was, guys commenting that give him his space, he needs his space and stuff. And the girl was watching comments that says, he's a cheater. He's for sure a cheater. He's not replying to you. So you would have different comments.
Fascinating.
And this is very scary because it means the content that would shape our minds and shape our hearts and the things or the thoughts we create are actually customized for what we believe in. So if you believe that the globe is flat.
Let's not get there, please.
I know, but I mean, every content you will get is content that supports that.
It's biased to what you already believe in.
100%.
That's extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
That's very dangerous.
Scary.
Yeah.
Very scary.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't know that the comments were also personalized. But I mean, I don't doubt it. Like TikTok is a master of personalizing.
Yeah.
I think they cracked the game of personalizing content. They're probably the first platform where it's baked into the product, and in a sense, it's easier for them to do, but also to give them credit, they're the first who have done it, where you don't need to tell me what you like and what you dislike. I'll just watch you.
Yeah.
And based on your usage, it's actions speak louder than words. If you tell me I like, videos of nature, but you're watching videos of people in the gym, well, actions speak louder than words. I'm going to show you videos of people in the gym.
And it's called understanding by rejection. And this is how they switched it. So you used to watch social media platforms where you selected your interests, starting with Facebook, right? And now, if I ask you about your interests, you might not know all your interests because there are a lot of things that you did not discover yet.
Right.
But by you rejecting the content that you don't like, but watching the content that you might like, I would know that you would watch the satisfying videos who actually
Yeah.
no one thought that they would be interested to watch it, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of hacking psychology there that we can get to in another point.
Yeah.
But zooming out, or I think we went a bit on a tangent. You were talking about how the anatomy of filmmaking has about 4 or 5 things. It was content, talent, marketing, distribution.
Yeah.
Was there anything else?
No. So this is it covers everything in the whole entertainment business.
I'm surprised you didn't say funding.
So of course funding is a big part of it, but it means I'm talking about technically how you do it. Funding is the first part. When you get the content, you need to raise fund for it. You either source it, and there are different models of that. The projects I've done is mainly it's called execution of production, or it's commissioned production, where I'm not actually investing my money. I'm pitching this to a platform or a broadcaster, and if they believe in the project, they would fund it and I would execute it. So this is the model that is actually, I would say, that works here more in the region. However, when it's a movie in the cinema, and this is what's happening in Saudi today, where they're raising fund for a film, and once they raise fund, they own the IP. Once they go to cinema and they get the money, then the return is for them. They would give back the money to the investors, and they would take the rest. And this is where you're betting so high. This is pure gambling, right?
Yeah. So this part is fascinating. We spoke about the analogy between, or the maybe comparison between the film world and the business world, or maybe more specifically in the tech startup world as well, because that's my world. In the tech startup world, you're taught to test the hypothesis or the idea in as minimal a way as possible. So if you have an idea to, I don't know, like sell meals online, you could build the entire app and all of its features, and that would take you maybe months of development, and it would cost a lot of money. But that's too risky, because you might build a product, invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars into it, and then you realize people don't want it. In the tech world, we have the maybe leverage or advantage or privilege, I would say, to be able to run a very small test, launch a landing page, so one web page that offers you the core product or the core offering, which is, click here, pay me $10, and I'll deliver a meal to you personally tomorrow. And that way you get to test, are people interested in this? And if someone is interested in it and they do it and they come back and they share it with their friends, although the experience is terrible or not amazing, then that means you have something they call product market fit. Product market fit is when the market wants your product so badly that you can barely supply it, or this is when like you've hit the jackpot basically when it comes to finding out what the market wants. What you said earlier is, in the film world, it's much more of a gamble. Can you expand on how you make such bets? Because those are like quite expensive bets.
But we have something similar. It's called pre-sold franchise.
Okay.
So if you watched The Shrink Next Door on Apple TV, or you watched the WeWork series, those were podcasts, right? And they were podcasts on Wondery.
Interesting.
And Business Wars, I guess, and by you having lots of views or lots of listeners to that, it means that there is an interest for you to actually create that. And that's why you see a lot of adaptations from even books to movies.
Right.
Because those books did very well, that you have already a fan base that you're betting on. So your bets would be, I would say, the risk would be much less if you have a proof of concept or the minimum viable product where you guys test it in the market MVP. And do it, right? Yeah. So this minimizes the risk. It doesn't mean that it ends the risk, but it minimizes that you have a fan base who can actually be the early adapters of the product.
That makes a lot of sense. This reminded me of this analogy. I think you might find it interesting. In design, there are maybe 3 types of like they call them low fidelity, mid fidelity, and high fidelity design, especially in user experience design. So a low fidelity design is a sketch, like literally paper and pen. Here's how the UI UX should look like. A mid fidelity design is more nicely kind of illustrated digital drawings with some more detail that tells you, gives you a bit more depth.
Yeah.
And then there's high fidelity design, where it's like a color design. You actually have the graphics, you have everything over there ready to be developed. I've heard of an analogous example to that analogy, which was communication, and how the lowest fidelity communication is text. You don't communicate a lot of emotions over text.
Yeah.
And then the mid fidelity communication is voice, because you hear a bit of the tonality of the voice. And then the high fidelity is video, or the highest is in person, because you can read body language.
Right.
Similarly, I think what you just said is, well, the low fidelity sketch of a script is a book, or literally the written script. And then a podcast, I think, is a lot more digestible in our day and age, because it's easier to listen to.
Right.
And the highest fidelity, obviously, is a film where I'm fully immersed. I'm being entertained in audio and visuals and everything in between.
Yeah.
Does that resonate?
100%. And Whiplash, for example, one of the greatest movies. I'm not sure if you watched.
I'm clearly not from the industry. I don't watch a lot of things.
I'm sure the guys here watched.
Nice.
However, Whiplash was a short movie. And because the short movie got a lot of success, they turned it into a feature film. And this is a practice in the industry where they try to test with a lot of tools. There is also a tool where, as you said, it's not a podcast. However, they would record the story, and then they would get people to listen to the story, and they would gauge their interest in the story to watch it actually or not. And those,
like in a focus group?
Like a focus group, yeah.
Amazing.
I don't believe in it, honestly. I believe it's biased when you get people in the room to get your feedback. However, if it happened organically, it's totally different. The way we consume content, or the audience consume content, you can never, there's no one that knows if this is a hit or not, because it depends on the mental state you're in. It depends on the emotions at the time that you will choose which movie you will watch. You might feel like watching a comedy movie tonight, or sometimes an action movie. So this choice as well, it depends on how your day went, how you feel today, whose company you're with, like a lot of details that cannot be counted, cannot be, even AI couldn't crack it today. I'm sure a lot of people here listening to this, when they watch Netflix, they're not getting into the recommendation list and choosing from the recommendation list, but they would watch based on the recommendation of their friends more than the recommendation of the AI.
I use the recommendations from the AI.
You're a tech guy, man.
Maybe I don't have any friends. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
amazing. Makes sense. I remember when you were saying this, there was this movie, I think like 20 years ago, where it was about how this music producer figured out this algorithm that can produce music that is guaranteed to be a hit. And then people stole the algorithm and stuff like that. So
do
we've
you
been
remember the
dreaming
movie,
about
by
this.
the way? I've been looking
don't.
for this movie for the last 5-6 years. I couldn't
way.
know the name of it.
No
We
way.
watched it probably on
NBC2,
NBC2,
probably.
yeah. And I've been looking for it because it makes a lot of sense. It's he puts like words in to get into the subconscious, where he gets you to like that specific song. So he used to create bands and actually kill bands, which actually happens right now in our industry. Like they do something called sampling in music, where you would get something that you're familiar with without you knowing that it's sampling from a very old music that you actually know. So it is somehow what the movie was.
So maybe it plays on your nostalgia. Like when you hear a new track that is sampled based of an old track, you can't maybe recognize it consciously, but subconsciously it feels familiar, so you like it more.
100%.
Oh wow, fascinating, man! What a world.
It is.
It's. I mean, it's fascinating because like it's very much subconscious driven, like feelings driven, and we're not very. Most of us, if not all of us, are not very aware of our emotions and like what drives our actions deep down. And I think music, movies, things like that move us in certain directions that just play on those predefined or let's say recorded feelings. And a lot of the time it's just the familiarity aspect of like what you grew up watching.
Yeah.
that becomes something that you like. Um, I think also this would be interesting. I want to hear your perspective on it. There's this concept that I learned about recently called the death of the middle. And it originally, I believe, started as people studying economics in the US and looking at like the middle class in like the economy or society and what happened to the middle class over a long period of time. And what they realized is the middle class has shrunk in size over decades, especially in this period where there's a lot of globalization and nobody really knows exactly why. And then what's fascinating is some researchers took the same findings and started looking into other areas. And some people even found that on in the music industry. I think someone researched Spotify numbers, and they found that it used to be the case where you had lots of big artists, lots of small artists, and also the majority actually was in the middle. Today, however, years later, they realized that the middle has shrunk significantly. And you now have, you're either a big artist or a small artist. And the in between is really, really small. And I really, like, I reflected on this a lot. And I can tell you maybe later how I look at it today in the like sport of business and what that means in my world. But I'm curious, do you see something similar in the film world?
No, it is a very well-known term. It's winners take all. So basically, if it's football players, you would see the highest paid football players take more than the rest of all players in the world.
Yeah.
You would see that in films, the movies that makes the most, and then there are movies that makes much little. And even within the same company, so if you see Warner movies, they will bet differently on each movie. And there is a movie that they will bet very high on because it will get them the highest return. So winners take all. It applies to the whole entertainment sector, from books to music to movies to like every kind of sport. So it is a term.
Fascinating. I mean, the term has existed. The term has existed for a while, but it feels like only recently has it really started to, like, when you look at the numbers, I was surprised with, like, I mean, economically and now also in entertainment. I do feel like the internet had a lot to do with it.
Of course.
Like, it probably amplified wins.
Yes, but amplified loss as well. Because you used to get, as an artist, not a subscription fee that
Royalty.
you might get
Yeah.
a very small part of, because the subscriber did not only listen to your music, but he listened to another 100 songs.
Right.
However, before, if I wanted to get your music, I would have to buy it as a record, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually harming artists right now, and that's why like movie artists and actors, you see that they're opening different businesses right now. And I'm sure you heard lately where DJ Khaled started something, whoever X started a lot of other businesses, and that's because they were used to get royalty on the movie as an IP, where actually when the guy did the Iron Man, he actually took a percentage of the IP and made more than he was supposed to pay. I think 30 something. He got paid 70 million something.
Wow.
So, but that was the case before, because you used to get a lot of licensing deals. You used to get a lot of box office tickets. But now when you're going directly to platform, where the platform needs to make money from those millions of subscribers that are paying $10 a month, it's very hard for them to get their money back, right?
Yeah. That whole world is fascinating, by the way. We spoke also about how Netflix is like the in-between your world and my world.
Yeah.
It's a tech startup that is in the film space, I guess. Entertainment space, I think that would be probably a better term.
Right.
Would you agree on that?
Yeah, it's between entertainment and technology.
Yeah.
And I would still see it as a company that is between both.
Yeah.
It's focused mainly, it is technology-driven entertainment, let's say. This is how I would call it.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I love how much topic jumping we're going through, but it's. I mean, clearly we can talk about these things for hours.
But I think it's time to speak about business as sport.
Okay, damn it! I was going to take it somewhere else. Okay.
Because I think we've been talking about it partially. However, I think people need to listen to the
Right.
analogy, because I think it applies to all businesses and it applies to my sector and your sector. So
Amazing. Let's do it, and then we'll come back to Netflix. I want to talk more about Netflix
sure.
because I do think that there are so many, like all the analogous examples and the corollaries between the two kind of industries. I think Netflix is a great example to talk about that through. So, do you want me to
Please go ahead.
ask the question? What's
So, how do you see business as a sport?
okay? So I've recently started thinking a lot more about business as a sport, and I became a lot more passionate about the analogy over the past few months. And we were talking about it the other day, and I shared it with you. And like you were, it's like you had so many light bulb moments of you drew so many, I think, similarities of the analogy and compared to what you're working on day to day now. But yeah, here's the analogy. I'll try to kind of like say the core components of it, but it's still a work in progress for me to build it. And by the way, again, this is something that I didn't come up with. I just I read about it I think 10 years ago, but it never resonated until very recently. And now I started building so much more on top of it. So, business is a sport. It's a mental sport. Most people, when they hear sport, they think physical sport, but there are mental sports as well. Business is a mental sport. Business is also a team sport. You can't win in the sport of business on your own. You have to have a team. The sport of business is about solving customer problems. The bigger the problem you solve, the more the customer is going to be willing to pay you for it. The more customers that have this problem, the more people are going to be willing to pay you for that problem. The score is revenues and profits. So, to give again an analogy, in football, the sport is about scoring, getting the football by only using your feet into the opponent's goal. In business, the sport is about solving customers' problems. And the score is not how many balls you got in the goal, but the score is about how many times the customer rewarded you for the problem that you solved for them. So there are so many areas to expand on here. So I started looking at every element of sports and linking it with its analogous example in business. So when you think of athletes and sports, what are the best values athletes could have? Well, they have to value growth. They have to value winning. They have to really want to win, because it's really hard to win. Like if you want to win in the top league in the NBA, it's really hard to win. And like all the guys who are playing in the NBA, they're not going to make it easy for you to win. They're going to fight for it. So the best athletes have to be resilient. They have to really want to win. The same thing applies on business. The best athletes of business really want to win and do whatever it takes to win. They, if they're like a player in basketball might realize, oh well, my technique in this shot is not great. Let me go and watch the video record on how I did it a few times. Let me go and talk to this better player. Let me go and read a book about how this is best done. An athlete of business would go like, oh well, I'm not being able to sell this product that I built. Let me go read this book about sales. Let me go talk to my friend who has sold a bunch of things. Let me go and practice selling 100 times so I can get better. It's the same thing. It's a sport. And the people who want to win badly enough end up winning. The more you want to win, the more your likelihood of winning is. And then it applies, so it also applies to leagues. In basketball and football, you have different leagues. So in football, for example, in some countries, you have 7 or 8 different leagues. Let's say the top league is the Premier League or like the NBA or whatever it is in different sports. That's where the superstars play. But then there's League 2, then there's League 3, then there's League 7, where you're just about moving from being an amateur to like a semi-pro. In business, there are also leagues, but nobody sees it because in basketball there's the NBA, in football there's FIFA. In business, there's no association. There are no rules. it seems like there are no rules, but there are these guidelines and these frameworks that I've been obsessing with. So if you're a small business, or let's say a self-employed person, or like a freelancer, and you're your own boss, you're technically an entrepreneur. That's at least what you like to write on your profile, because it sounds amazing. But in reality, you're probably playing in League 7 or League 8, or
Yeah.
maybe you're even an amateur. You haven't even started really getting into the pro league.
Right.
If you're a Nike or an Apple or a Porsche or a Disney, you're playing in the league, in league number one. You're playing in the big boys league.
Yeah.
So again, there are so many analogous examples, and then you start looking at, oh well, basketball teams have coaches. What's the analogous example for a coach in business? Like, I don't have a coach. Is the CEO a coach, or is the CEO the captain? And
Yeah.
you keep going on and on and on, and it's fascinating because I think analogies help us understand things, and digest complex concepts in an easier way.
I agree, and it's actually very relatable when it comes to filmmaking, because business as sport, it is really a sport. And we actually discuss stamina of the talent we recruit all the time. The talent that work on TV commercials that are for 2 or 3 days, they cannot work on a TV series that is actually 80 days of shoot.
Wow.
It's impossible. They cannot handle it. They would lose stamina by half of those days. Um, so it is always a question that we ask for the talent that will work with us, and especially when it comes to heads of departments. I wouldn't recruit the biggest DP that works on TV commercial. He cannot make it.
Mm.
He cannot make it to 120 days of shoot.
Wow.
It's impossible. He would lose if even if he could be a finisher in sports,
Yeah.
but he would be exhausted.
Mm.
So his capability to give is much less, or his creativity cannot stay for on one project for this amount of time. However, he can do 120 TV commercials a year.
Mm.
So it's the sport is different, right? When you run for 400 meters or 100 meters, it's a totally different sport, right?
Than a marathon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is, and the analogy works perfectly when it comes to our business as well. And there's also something, because you said they play as a team, and the team has a vision, and this is the vision of the project.
Mhm.
This is the vision of the team. Do they want to win the cup, the league, or they just want to maintain a specific score,
Or they just want to have fun.
or trying to have fun? And this is where the game starts, and the competition starts. Now, we have the different leagues, of course, although it does not work as the big boys league, and the how, because it's more, I would say, regional. However, you can make it to there. Like when Parasite, the Korean movie, made it to the Oscars, they've done it to the big boys league, right? So this is it's very interesting that it really applies on the business side of entertainment and entertainment itself. However, is the CEO the coach? In my case, is the executive producer the coach? He is the coach. I wear two hats. I wear the CEO hat, where it's more mainly on the business side of the company. However, I play the executive producer role on the projects, where it's my role to lead the team from the idea to get the project executed.
Fascinating. Yeah. In my world, I find myself playing also two roles. Sometimes the coach, sometimes the captain. I think in the life cycle of a startup, in the early days, you can't. I mean, there's like 5 people, so everyone needs to do everything.
Yeah.
So you have to double hat. But I think even at a later stage, it reduces. So I can play more of a coach today, but I still need to get on the court every now and then, and like play a little bit with some of the team members, and like pass the ball and receive the ball and so on. In an ideal world, I wouldn't have to, but I think even good coaches in basketball and football actually enter the court and practice and like dabble and play, and so it's fascinating.
And I believe it's important to keep playing, because if we just sit in the captain seat, we will have a distinction between us and the players that we're working with, right?
Yeah.
But by being there and understanding their struggles, understanding where what are the challenges they're facing, and it's us who would see how can we fix the problem for the future. It's us who would actually define the challenges or the most important challenges that would make this product the best product in the upcoming project. We do something called project closure, and I took this also from other businesses. And I like to actually bring different concepts from other businesses. Like we've worked on the vision alignment, which came actually from applications. So in project closure, we would discuss the whole process from the beginning of startup or the beginning of script until we've done the closing, and what were the challenges that we faced for us to fix them in the next project to have more efficient, effective film production.
That takes a lot of discipline because once you're done, you just want to be done.
True.
How did that start?
So what I did, we did a survey after each project we do. I would send a survey to all the talent that worked with me, cast and crew, to actually know about what were their experiences. Because in our business, the more I remove the operational hustle and the more I make it smooth for the talent to focus on their creative side, I would get a better outcome. So it's a formula.
Amazing.
The more they think about they're not getting paid on time, or they're not having the best food, or the hotel is not somewhere they really can sleep in and the bed is not comfortable, they will not do well the next day. But if I give them all of that, and if I give them a good accommodation, good food, and then
do you give them good food?
And that would give them this would give me a better outcome. And I've tested that. The team, I'm lucky to work with this team. My team, who I worked with all the previous projects I told you about, they give their best because not only we work as a team, but we also love the work we do. And it is for me an important element for the talent I will work with, that they are here not only for the business side of it, where it's a transaction. However, they're also there for the art side of it. We are in show business. It's 50% show, which is art and culture and creativity, and the other part is business. So
Amazing.
we have to have a balance of both all the time.
I love that. If I was to kind of summarize what you said, because I want to reflect on it, and I have something that I feel similarly about that I'll share. If I take care of my athletes, they will play better.
Yes.
Basically, that's what you said.
True.
And I get asked by people all the time, hey, how can I build a good business culture? How you guys seem to have a good culture. Like, how did you figure it out? Is it the table tennis that you? Is it how do you do it? And I had to reflect on it because to me, it's something that I was intentional about, but at the same time, I wasn't really thinking about creating a good culture. I was thinking about, I'm an athlete myself. If I'm onboarding athletes and I want them to perform in the best way possible, then I would want to remove anything that gets in the way of them performing in the best way possible. So if thinking about food is going to get in the way, no problem. Don't think about food. If it's thinking about, am I going to get my pay on time? Is it thinking about X, Y, Z? Whatever it is, I'll remove all the controllables, and then you just focus on performing. And it just comes naturally to me, and I believe clearly it comes naturally to you as well. And that's where it goes to the values. We said business is a sport. In any sport, the team spirit matters a lot. Team spirit is like company culture. And what is culture? What is spirit? Culture is about shared values. How I make decisions and how you make decisions are not far off because we're optimizing for the same thing.
Yeah.
And when I said earlier, doing whatever it takes, there's an asterisk there, which is within the guidance of our values, because doing whatever it takes could mean that you do immoral things to win, which is, you don't want that, because then you lose in the long term.
100%.
If you play unethical games in the short term, you win in the short term. You win faster in the short term.
Right.
But then you lose in the long term. So optimizing for long-term win is what the big winners do. Yeah, I think building a healthy culture, and because again we said business is a team sport, and you need you mentioned the word orchestration, or like you
Yeah,
orchestrate the team members. That's the hardest thing in business. That's the hardest thing in sports.
true.
The hardest element of the job of the coach is to manage in the basketball court the egos of five superstars. Each one of them thinks he or she is the best in the world, but then if they don't play together, they are guaranteed to lose.
Exactly. And this is actually the role of the executive producer all the time, is not to choose the best team or the best members or the best talent that exists. However, it's the best team that can play together. And by saying that, that's why we would sacrifice a great talent if they cannot communicate well with the team. Um, and it happens all the time because, as you said, if they cannot play together, you cannot achieve. You cannot really achieve the final product because it is teamwork to achieve one thing that is cohesive. If there is someone that thinks they're better than the other and they can do more than the other, then there is an imbalance that happens.
Fascinating. I still feel like there's so much on the business as a sport analogy itself. Um, yeah, like the talent part, I think is where we both of us have struggled with the most, maybe over the past few years,
Yeah.
or learned the most. Let's put it that way. Put it in a nicer way. Um, I really like what you told me about why you named your company earlier. Can you expand on that? Like you mentioned, it's about talent attraction or development. Can you?
So, in my previous company, I started a department called Talent Development and Casting. And that's because thinking about the future of this business, we lack talent in the region. We actually recruit talent from outside the region all the time. But I believe that having more talent from the region would actually not only help me in doing the business, but will help the whole infrastructure because our industry depends on culture, depends on understanding the content that you come from, and the nostalgic elements we spoke about. Like all of those are based on the human experience who actually went through since his childhood until today. So by having more local talent, it helps us. Now, to do that, what I had in my vision in my previous company was to actually develop talent from the region, but getting the best practices from abroad and applying them here. Now, when we closed down, um, I started the creator space because it is for me the space where creators can come and we will be the ecosystem for that to as a plug and play of talent. So we created the creator space to make it the space for talent to come to focus on the creative side, to focus on the vision, to focus on how they want to execute the project they visualize in their heads, and all the operational logistics and the hustle around it. It's something we can figure out. We can figure out the highest quality possible. In like it all depends for us on the project itself. However, my previous project, the movie I told you about, the director was a first time director.
Oh,
And it is the most watched on Netflix today. However, he was an animation director for his whole life. And I insisted on him directing. Um, he was really scared in the beginning, but I told him, for me, you have the vision and it's all that matters to me. If you sit behind the screen and you know exactly how you visualize this movie, I will make it happen for you, regardless of you not understanding every role on set, every equipment on set. But I will make sure that all of this is not actually important if you have the vision in mind. So, and this is what I believe in. I believe that there's an opportunity here in the region to actually have more talent to work on the visions they have in mind.
and I have so many things to comment on. I love this. Again, so many similar examples in our space where I realize the best person to give a big responsibility to is a lot of the time, surprisingly, the person who hasn't done it before, because they think from first principles. They don't come with pre-existing rules and defined processes in their minds,
Yeah.
and they end up, although they struggle more through it, they end up achieving the best result. There are exceptions, but I also like to bet on the underdogs or the people who haven't really had the experience in a particular thing.
Same here. My father always say experience is a blockage, and I really believe in it, because experience creates restrictions, and if we create those restrictions, we will not go through the same experience again. However, I say that it's learnings, not experiences. So if we focus on the learnings that we went through those experiences, we will do the experience again, but in a different approach, right? So when and I had lots of those struggles when I recruited people from the same industry. However, they had 30 years of experience, and experience is really a blockage because they cannot think,
Yeah.
pass through it.
Mm.
So if I keep having people with a lot of experience,
Yeah.
I might face a lot of restrictions. What I do right now, I really focus on getting people from outside the industry.
Mm.
I'm an engineer myself, so and I've seen how I keep asking questions without having restrictions. And sometimes my team give me a look that it's a stupid question to
Yeah.
have, and I insist on actually wanting an answer because sometimes I think there is a different solution to that. Even if nobody solved it in the world, there might be a different solution.
Yeah.
Maybe we spoke last time about me wanting not to structure innovation, however, to structure the processes of how to think. And if there is something that I really care about, is not how to do things, but how to think about things. And for me, this is how, if I find the right alignment on that, I would have better results. I don't want them to take things in processes where it's one, two, three, four. However, I want them to think in the same direction. If we all think in the same direction and we all created a vision that we all see, even if it's unclear to everyone as sharp as it's clear to me. However, we're all working to it.
Mm.
It will be clearer the more we go further.
Love it. You said something about how um, it's about how to think,
Yeah.
not how to do, something in those lines. And I was curious, how do you find the time to think? Because as things get busy, you start getting pulled from every direction.
Right.
I'm curious, are you intentional? Do you actually schedule time in where you lock yourself in somewhere and you just think? Because for me, that became so much more difficult.
So what I do on every project, and this is why I think in the break I told you the like a lot of chaos that we go through, especially in production. It's a lot of problems all the time. But to align that, what I do before every project, we do a vision alignment where we align the whole heads of departments and the whole team. What is the vision for this project from cast and crew for them to all think within the same direction? I would also define what is my production vision, what is the director vision, and what is the project overall vision. So we start from the overall, then it gets divided, and then every department will pitch their vision that aligns with this vision. So this makes it, I would say, how to think part is much easier for me to handle, where I'm not thinking about all the departments, and I want to give them that space of freedom for them to think. So how to think is the vision I put in place. For example, in Ras Bras head to head, I was focusing on two main elements. It was for me art direction and photography, and I made sure that it applies from the way I invest in the project. So I would invest more in art direction and in photography. I would invest. I would focus more with those departments to get the right
Why?
thing possible.
Why those two things in this project?
Because this project was a world building project. It's a universe, and it's local universe. However, it's exaggeration of I wouldn't say real. It's a very imaginative world that we built. But it's the first time of the region that we built something Saudi in this kind of universe. So for us to achieve that in the perfect way possible, it's the look and feel that I want the audience to get into this world. We created something called Bdecha, and then this is the world we wanted to create through that.
Amazing. And back to the how do you find time to think? You were talking about creating the vision or communicating the vision. Do you do this at the beginning of every project? And
Yes.
how do you do it? Do you write it down?
Yeah, I think about it, or me and my team, we think about it after reading the script, of course. And we decide that this is the way we want to invest in this project. This is the way we want to achieve this project. This is how we visualize actually the end product. So this
Do
document
you
for
speak
me,
about it? Oh, you write it.
we don't only write it, we actually visualize it fully. So in head to head, we achieved 70% of the vision document we created.
Amazing.
And
How long would those documents span?
it starts building up because we don't have time. We fight time. We fight three things: quality, time, and delivery. Sorry, quality, cost, and delivery all the time. And so it gets built up. So I start with a few pages, then every department will build on it. If they go in a different direction, I will get them back, and we will align them again. We created this process, me and Abdullah, my brother, because he comes from a different world as well. So I've put three heads together: an executive producer, an artist who built tools, Abdullah, and then me myself was supervising the whole process to know how can I re-engineer the process from thinking from the audience perspective up to the production.
Fascinating. Being an outsider gave you maybe an unfair advantage in some way, but obviously also many more unfair disadvantages.
Yeah.
How did you go about learning being an outsider? Did someone take a chance on you, give you a responsibility? Did you I'm curious, maybe if you could tell us, how did you enter into this field for people who are listening who might be interested to enter into the same field as well?
So I consider myself very lucky. I had mentors my whole life. And my latest mentor was Yasser Harab, who is the guy who actually invested in me being an engineer and getting into this field. However, I've been freelancing as a photographer since my early days in university. It was my side hustle to get extra income,
Nice.
to enjoy life, and then I started getting into that. A lot of imposter syndrome all the way, a lot of self doubts. I still have, especially me being in a very young age working as a managing partner in a company where my employees are 30 and 20 years in the field. A lot of disrespect I faced.
Context, how old were you and how old were they?
I was 22, 23 years old. I would say when I was a managing partner, I was 25. But I still work with a crew that are 40 years old, 35 years old, and more than that. So for them, it's someone who doesn't have experience, especially when you're a filmmaker and you work all around the world, living in different areas and dealing with a lot of people. It is really different experiences.
Yeah.
And I still say I recruit people who have more experience than me because I need a better team. I need a team that is better than me. I don't need a team that I know better. So my team is better than me for sure.
Amazing. You said you optimize for three things, or you fight against three things.
Yeah, those are actually engineering methodology. So I use engineering. I studied industrial engineering and engineering management, which is actually based on those three pillars. It's quality, delivery, and cost.
Delivery being time.
Delivery being time, yeah. So I would choose two over one or one over two all the time. I cannot choose the three. So my decisions are based on that. So if I have to deliver in a month from now, and it's not enough time, so I would sacrifice quality for time and cost. Or I can actually raise quality, but I would sacrifice cost for sure. So if I have a big VFX shot, if I do it in the highest quality, it will require a lot of money for that. So I will lose cost. So this is where it's one of the three or two of the three all the time.
Nice.
And this is a decision that we take on every problem we face during production.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you optimize for a lot more than that, obviously, in real life. Like these are maybe the three large things that you look at. But I mean, especially since every project is in a sense temporary. Like you start, there's a starting point, there's a script, there's funding, go and do 10,000 tasks to get it done over a period of like X number of days or months, and then close everything down. So it sounds like a fascinating journey every time. Do you like love it? Do you love that part?
We thrive on this, man.
Yeah,
we really thrive on this, and this is what keeps the dopamine going, all the time. It's every project when we start from the idea, I get the same fear of actually, do I take this project or I reject it?
Wow.
How
do you battle that fear?
By just going in and taking the risk all the time, and I know like the people around me all the time, they call me, you're crazy doing that. The last two projects I've done together, I've shot in 4 different cities, and to deliver in Ramadan in a very short period, and they were huge projects. If I think about them today, I will not take them,
Wow.
because it is really hard to actually manage this amount of budget with those amount of people, delivering the quality that they require in a very short period of time. If you think a lot about it, you wouldn't do it. And one of the things I was telling the young audience I had yesterday is that I have the end goal and I have the first step I want to take. If I think about the 3 steps ahead,
Mm.
I would think about consequences and I would think about a lot of other things that would make me actually might back off.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That works everywhere except for chess. You should think a few steps ahead. We have
Yeah.
a chessboard here.
Yeah.
Nice. Man, again, so much to ask about. Um, Going back to a question I asked earlier that I think wasn't answered. If I was one of those people in the audience yesterday, and I think, in high school or like just around that age, and I want to start in the field you're in, what piece of advice would you give me?
If you're going into university today, I think get the education you select. You don't have to study filmmaking to be in filmmaking. And I don't believe you have to study anything to be in whatever you want to end up in. I believe that it's understanding how to use the skill set you have and the experience you've been through in different fields would give you an advantage, definitely. I believe in range, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the concept of range,
Mm.
which is a book that Bill Gates recommended a few years ago,
Mm.
where it's learning about everything would give you a different perspective
Mm.
on someone who actually working in finance and studied finance in his whole life. It's it's having a different exposure, or I would say a wider perspective to
Mm.
things that gives you a different indications on how to do things.
Back to the analogies concept, it's learning about different fields and how they function that you catch certain things and like, oh, this could actually work in my field.
100%. I get a lot of things from gaming
Oh, wow.
because gaming, there is a lot in it that we can use, and technologies as well that we can use in our
Fascinating.
field. I used the vision from the product,
Yeah.
from the product or
Like
the
startups and
app.
product development. Yeah.
And I still use engineering structures and methodologies
Amazing.
in films.
Fascinating.
So
Going back to you were saying that uh, you battled the fear by just jumping in. I love that, and I think it makes a lot of sense. No matter how much you analyze and think through and try to, like, at the end of the day, there is a risk,
yes,
regardless of what you're doing. There is a risk.
you will calculate it.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think zooming out also a bit to the meta of this, we are actually naturally, or we've evolved to think negatively. Honestly, like
Right.
let's call it out, because I want to call this out because a lot of people don't start because of this, because of the fear.
True.
So we've evolved to think negatively because the default 100,000 years ago was you wake up and then you either don't have anything to eat and you die, or something comes and eats you and you die. So we've evolved in a way where, like, we try to reduce risk, and we try to avoid loss. But we don't live in the same world today, and the world is full of opportunities.
Right.
And the best way to test this is to try. One framework that I found to be very useful. I love, like, frameworks and questions and analogies. If you can't tell already, mental models, as some would call them. One mental model that I love is when you are in a fearful position where you're not sure whether you should take a step or not, is ask the question, what's the worst that could happen?
True.
As simple as that is, I mean, for you, maybe for one of those projects, what's the worst that could happen? It could have been, I would have lost a lot of money. Or
I'm joking.
yeah, I mean, honestly, it
Yeah.
happens sometimes as well
course.
in business, like when you take a big risk financially.
Yeah.
But you weigh the risks, and
True.
hopefully don't risk that from
No,
the
no, no,
beginning.
no.
Maybe towards once you gain more experience, you can take bigger risks. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of shed light on that. But with taking risks comes failure. So I would love for you to shed light on what has been a risk or a bet you've taken that didn't pan out? Because if I'm listening to you and I'm like, oh my God, this
Oh.
guy's amazing. Everything he touched turned into gold. Realistically speaking, that's
Really
probably not the case.
true. And realistically speaking as well, I think I still get the same fear. I still get the same self doubts. I still get sometimes less imposter syndrome. No, but I used to get that a lot as well throughout my career. I've actually been through that few years from today. However, it's it's still like it's just a mental game for me that I play with myself, and I've been through a lot of other failures. One of which is that I actually lost my previous company, which we had 100, more than 100 employees, and I had different offices. We've seen it all. Was in Cannes Festival, whether it's working with superstars and celebrities, and like we've seen all of this. We've worked with Hollywood, Bollywood, but in a day or two, everything just disappeared. So for me, I lost everything. And I think it's realizing that you're capable to figure it out, regardless of what it is. And having this, let's say, trusting yourself by saying, I will solve that problem. And it's all about problems and experiences that we go through. And it will teach me something about myself. Today, I see things this way. However, if you asked me this question a few years ago, I wouldn't even take the step I've taken today. After losing my company, I thought I'm gonna leave this industry forever. I thought of actually getting into different businesses, maybe competing with you sometime. but um, but no, I think I really believe that it's all about learning how to figure things out and learning that you're capable to figure things out.
Amazing. How did you learn that?
By it's been 5 to 6 months of depression, of waking from bed to sofa, by actually creating different ideas of different businesses all the time just to escape the reality of that, by rejecting different job offers and pushing myself to actually wake up and do at least one step every day. And I think for me, if there is an advice I would give to myself before everyone, it's take one, do one, finish one, and then do the rest. It's always just think about the next step only. If I thought I will be here today, 2 years ago when I was just opening my company, I would have an anxiety and I wouldn't start even, you know?
Love that. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that openly. I've gone through a very similar thing as well. Leaving my last company and feeling the existential angst and not knowing what to do with my life and barely getting out of bed. So it's a very relatable experience there. Um,
But if you go through it again, would you manage it differently? And this is the question I keep asking myself.
Fascinating. If I go through it again, would I manage it differently? Um, I think I would get myself out of it sooner.
100%.
I think I didn't have the awareness to realize that it's not the end of the world. I was told this by a coach that I worked with at some point, like an executive coach. He told me that when you see a kid crying or shouting because someone took their toy, you would you wouldn't be affected by this. You'd just be like, oh, the poor kid doesn't realize that it's not a big deal. He'll get the toy back eventually, or like he'll get another toy, but the kid is crying because it's like his whole life is on the line because he lost his toy. He's like, when you grow older and you get to a certain position, you think you start feeling like your ego has developed. You start feeling like, oh, I have all the self-awareness in the world. But then there is a level of awareness that is above your current level of awareness. And when you are so bogged down with a problem, someone else, especially an outsider, or even maybe you, if you train yourself, you can zoom out and look at it from a bird's eye view and realize I can eat, I have a roof over my head, I can breathe. Um, this too shall pass.
This is the sentence I've been using with myself in the whole 6 months. And I think gratitude got me out of it. Like, Gratitude really got me out of it. I've been meditating every day, just going through gratitude for the place I have, even the financials I had actually for me to think and to live for a certain amount of months until I figure out my next step. So yeah, it was amazing, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
It's a character building experience, I'm sure.
bro, life
Amazing.
changing and turning point.
Love it. Two quick ones and we wrap up, but they're not going to be easy.
I thought we're wrapping now.
Maybe we'll do a nice sweetener at the end, but um, actually, I think you've already answered one. I was going to ask you the question of what is a difficult experience you'd recommend to everyone? But
I
actually,
would recommend.
yeah, what's a difficult experience that you would recommend to everyone?
I would say it's that it's going through loss, grief of the career you have or of something that you have, because I'm sure we get attached to things very easily, and learning to unattach and learning to actually being aware is really for me, at least for my experience, was a turning point.
Not to associate your self worth with the thing that you're doing.
100%. This is
Love
it.
it.
This is it. Yeah.
Amazing. And Jasim, mashallah, you're super driven. You're hungry. Um, first of all, what's the dream? What's the vision? Where do you wanna get to?
I do what I do to actually, I wouldn't say um, to entertain people and to actually move their emotions, to resonate with them. All I do is about resonance, regardless of the platform. Um, I don't see myself only doing films and movies. I see myself doing different forms of entertainment that resonate with people and create experiences for them. This is what I want to keep doing. Those are the talent I want to keep working with, and I believe that creatives are the saviors of this world. They will keep the essence of humanity even after AI.
Oof. Big words. Amazing. Love it. Um, and what keeps you going? What like this is maybe your personal mission statement, and it's amazing,
Yeah,
and it clearly is something you're very passionate about. And what you said basically is, it's not the destination; it's the journey.
yeah.
As long as I'm, entertaining, as long as I'm working with these talents, then I'm happy. But realistically speaking, there's a chip on your shoulder. There's something you're trying to prove to yourself, to the world, to whoever. Where's that drive coming from, as far as you know, if you have an idea?
I would say I'm still in my learnings. I'm still going through a lot of learnings. I'm learning a lot about myself. I wouldn't say I figured out everything. It's a lot to figure out, but I believe in lifelong learning, and I really want to leave impact in this world. I really want to leave this world a better place. I would really want to tell stories from our region to the world, and I believe it's human. We're communicating human experiences. So this is what keeps me doing what I'm doing now. Not sure if this will change later. So yeah, I did not figure everything out yet.
Amazing. Do you think you ever will?
We'll try, and I believe this is why I believe this is I'm born to actually figure what my vision is for this world. To figure why am I here and why am I doing this. And by every experience I go through, I learn a lot about it.
Amazing, man. This was awesome.
Same here, man. I
Thank you
really
so
enjoyed
much.
this.
We should do this more often.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you. This was great.